There comes a time in life when the loudest battles we fight are not with fists or words, but with silence. You ever walk into a room and feel a tension that cuts deeper than knives? You ever love someone, trust someone, pray for someone, only to watch them get consumed by a darkness you didn't invite? That's when you learn some people don't fight fair. Some people let demons speak through them. Envy, hate, manipulation, control. Those demons wear faces you once trusted. And here you are, exhausted, trying to explain yourself, defend your heart, prove your worth, and all it does is feed the fire. But listen, real power doesn't scream. Real strength doesn't beg to be understood. It stands still and lets God do the talking. You don't need to argue with demons. You don't need to match their chaos. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away with your peace intact. You don't have to curse them. Your silence is the judgment. Your growth is the answer. Your healing is the noise they cannot stand. Because nothing torments a demon more than a person they couldn't break. There is a kind of silence that speaks louder than any voice you've ever heard. It's the silence that comes after you've been disrespected, lied to, gaslighted, manipulated, and you still choose to not lash out. It's the kind of silence that's not empty. It's full of understanding, full of wisdom, full of knowing exactly who you are and what you carry. Some people will push every button you have just to see you break character, just to get a rise out of you. Because your peace threatens the demons in them. Your calmness rattles the cages of their chaos. And when you choose to respond with stillness, you confuse the very force trying to provoke you. They wanted your anger, but you gave them your absence. They wanted your reaction, but you gave them your silence. That silence is not weakness, it's warfare. You don't need to throw punches. You don't need to scream your truth. Your spirit, rooted in peace, becomes the loudest presence in the room. And suddenly, their chaos starts to look small, petty, and desperate. Because when peace walks in, every demon has to sit down and shut up. That kind of silence doesn't come from pride. It comes from pain that's been healed. It comes from battles you've already won. It comes from nights you cried alone and got back up with no applause. You don't get that kind of silence from running away. You earn it by walking through the fire and choosing not to burn others in return. That's what peace-backed silence really is. A choice to not pass your pain forward. A decision to not mirror the brokenness handed to you. It's restraint that comes from real strength. Anybody can scream when they're hurt. Anybody can clap back when they're attacked. But it takes a healed soul, a disciplined mind, and a steady heart to be still when the storm is loudest. Don't confuse silence with surrender. It's not giving up, it's leveling up. You're letting them scream into a void they can't reach you in anymore. You've left the arena. You're done performing for their chaos. And they hate that. Because people filled with demons need a crowd. They feed off attention. But when you remove yourself, they're left with nothing but their own noise. And that noise starts to eat them alive. People who thrive off control panic when they lose access to your emotional triggers. That's why your silence is such a threat. It breaks their rhythm. You become unpredictable. And unpredictable people are dangerous to those who want to manipulate you. See, when you don't react the way they expect, you force them to look inward. And most people don't want to do that. They want to stay distracted by your reactions, your pain, your breakdown. But when you deny them that, they're left facing their own reflection. And they'll either get worse or get real. But that part's not your responsibility. You are not here to fix demons in other people. You are not here to babysit brokenness. You are here to walk in your purpose. And your purpose requires peace. And that peace becomes a wall. Not a wall that shuts people out, but a wall that keeps demons from getting in. There's a sacred kind of power in a person who knows they could destroy someone with the truth but chooses not to. There's honor in restraint. There's dignity in silence. Not the silence that ignores, but the silence that understands. You're not being silent because you have nothing to say. You're silent because what you could say would crush them. And you're not that kind of person. You don't fight like they do. You're built different. You know God fights for you, and when you trust that, you don't feel the need to prove your innocence or explain your worth. You just keep building, keep healing, keep moving. And people will start to notice that while others are loud, messy, and always in the middle of drama, you're still, you're focused, you're quiet, but not empty. And the right people, they'll feel that peace when they're around you. They'll see that stillness and want to protect it. But the wrong people, the ones with demons, they'll get irritated. They'll call you cold, arrogant, distant. Not because you are, but because they can't reach you anymore. It's wild how silence can expose everything. You don't even have to confront someone. Just pull back your energy and watch the truth rise. Watch how quickly people show their true colors when you stop feeding their fire. You'll start to see who only valued you when you were vulnerable, who only kept you close because they had access to your reactions. Because some people don't love you, they love the control they have over you. When you stop responding, when you stop trying to explain or justify yourself, you take that power back. And at first, they'll rage, they'll push harder, they'll try everything to get you to speak, to react, but stay still, hold that silence like a shield. Because what they don't know is that your silence has become a fortress. And inside that fortress, that's where you're finding yourself again. That's where you're remembering who you are. You're no longer surviving their chaos. You're creating your own peace. You've got to understand, demons are not just red-faced monsters. Sometimes they come as insecurity, jealousy, rage, control. They speak through people who haven't healed, who haven't confronted their trauma, who live in bitterness. And when your spirit starts to elevate, when you begin to heal and grow and break cycles, those demons panic. Because your growth reminds them of what they're refusing to do. Your light threatens their darkness. Your peace insults their drama. And they will try everything to pull you back. But the real flex, the real power, is when you can look them in the eyes, feel the fire they're trying to start in your soul, and choose to walk away without saying a word. That's not weakness, that's spiritual maturity. That's walking with God. That's moving with purpose. That's being led by something greater than your emotions. And when you move like that, no demon can follow you. They'll try, but they won't have the access they used to. People will tell you silence is passive, that it's avoidance, that it means you're weak. But let me tell you something. Silence is a strategy. It's a choice, and it's one of the most powerful tools in spiritual warfare. Because while they're running their mouth, while they're throwing shade, while they're twisting the truth and trying to ruin your name, you're being elevated. You're being protected. You're being pulled into a season that doesn't require your defense, only your discipline. And your silence in the face of chaos is discipline. It's you saying, I don't need to fight this battle. I already won it by refusing to play. You don't need to clap back. You don't need to clear the air. God clears what needs to be cleared. And when he does it, there's no confusion. Let him talk. Let them lie. Let them project. Because your silence is saying everything they need to hear, even if they'll never admit it. When you walk in silence backed by peace, you walk differently. You carry yourself with a quiet authority. You're no longer triggered by people's ignorance or baited by their manipulation. You know who you are now. And when you know who you are, you stop trying to prove it to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. That's the freedom that silence brings. You reclaim your time, your energy, your focus, and you start pouring into what matters, your growth, your healing, your purpose. You spend less time reacting and more time building. You stop defending your character and start developing your calling. You stop asking, why did they do this to me? And start asking, what is God trying to show me through this? That's the shift. That's when you know you're growing, because you realize not every battle deserves your voice. Some just need your silence and your exit. So the next time someone tries to draw you into drama, the next time someone tries to provoke your spirit, break your focus, or plant doubt in your mind, remember this: peace is louder than war. Presence is louder than performance, and silence, when backed by peace, is louder than any scream. You don't need to say a thing. Just keep walking, keep growing, keep glowing. Because the most powerful sound a demon will ever hear is the door shutting behind you. Your growth doesn't just heal you, it exposes everything around you that was never real to begin with. It shakes the ground under people who are standing on your brokenness to feel tall. It threatens the ones who only loved you when you were small, afraid, and easy to manipulate. Some people were never in your life to support you. They were there to manage you. They liked you when you second-guessed yourself. They liked you when you apologized for existing. But the moment you started to rise, even quietly, their smiles started to fade. Because your growth became a mirror, and they couldn't stand the reflection. They couldn't take watching you become everything they prayed you would never figure out. Not because you hurt them, but because your healing made them irrelevant. Because the moment you learned how to stand on your own, they lost the grip they had on your soul. Yes, there is something dangerous about a person who's done people-pleasing. Someone who's no longer addicted to approval. Someone who doesn't need to be liked to feel worthy. That's what growth does. It rewires your mind. It teaches you to love yourself so loudly that you stop chasing what was never meant for you. And that scares people who only had value when you were broken. When you stop calling When you stop over-explaining, when you stop begging to be understood, they panic because they never expected you to outgrow the cage they built for you. Your confidence becomes their defeat, not because you're trying to be better than them, but because you're becoming better than who you used to be. And that terrifies people who are still stuck in their own stagnation. They don't hate you. They hate that they stayed the same while you transform. Your light exposes their darkness, and they'll try to dim it with guilt, with shame, with silence. Don't fall for it. Keep shining. You have to understand, your healing journey is spiritual warfare. Every step you take toward peace, wholeness, self-love, it disrupts the assignment others had to keep you in chains. You weren't just breaking patterns, you were breaking people's control. They don't say it out loud, but they miss the version of you that was easy to manipulate, the one who tolerated disrespect, the one who said yes when you were screaming no inside. So now, when you walk in truth, when you set boundaries, when you choose solitude over drama, they say you've changed. And you have. You were supposed to. Growth is not supposed to be comfortable. It's not supposed to be accepted by everyone. It's not meant to keep you liked. It's meant to keep you aligned. So when people leave, let them. When people slander you, ignore them. Because what they're really reacting to is the death of the version of you they could use. Sometimes people will try to make you feel guilty for healing. They'll say you're cold, that you're distant, that you're selfish. But truthfully, they're just mad you're no longer available for their dysfunction. They're upset that your glow up didn't include them. But what they don't realize is that your growth wasn't a performance. It was survival. You grew because you had to. You evolved because the pain demanded a change. You leveled up because the old version of you couldn't handle the weight anymore. And now that you're standing stronger, breathing clearer, walking lighter, they don't recognize you. Good. You weren't meant to stay in that form. That version of you was built for suffering. This version is built for purpose. And anybody who loved the older, smaller you but can't handle this powerful, free version was never meant to go where you're going. You are not arrogant because you protect your energy. You are not rude because you refuse to explain yourself for the 100th time. You are not heartless because you no longer carry what was breaking you. That's growth. And for some people, that growth will look like betrayal because they only saw you as a role, not a soul. They loved your obedience, not your essence. They wanted your silence, not your boundaries. And now that you've stepped into your truth, they'll accuse you of being fake, disloyal, too good. Let them talk. That's the language of people who are losing access to the version of you they exploited. You don't owe anyone your old self just because they're uncomfortable with your new one. The real you is not responsible for people's refusal to grow with you. Let them stay stuck. But you keep climbing. They'll smile to your face and pray behind your back that you fall. They'll pretend to clap for you while secretly hoping your peace doesn't last, because your success, even emotional success, reminds them that they too had the chance to change. But instead of growing, they chose gossip. Instead of healing, they chose blame. Instead of evolving, they stayed addicted to being victims. And now, watching you rise without needing revenge, it bothers them. Not because you're hurting them, but because you're proof that healing is possible. And that truth, that reality, is too heavy for someone still hiding from their own mirror. So they'll try to pull you down. They'll minimize your growth. They'll say it's fake, manufactured, superficial. But deep down, they know it's real because they can feel the shift. You're not just walking different, you are different. And they can't stand that they no longer recognize the person they once controlled. Growth will cost you relationships, but it'll return you to yourself. You may lose company, but you'll gain clarity. You'll start to realize that not everyone is meant to be lifelong. Some were lessons, some were mirrors. Some were distractions dressed up as soulmates. And as you grow, you'll feel lonely, not because you're alone, but because you're no longer surrounded by chaos disguised as companionship. And that loneliness, it's temporary. Because what's waiting for you on the other side of this elevation are people who love you in your wholeness. People who see you clearly and don't flinch. People who aren't threatened by your light because they've done the work to shine on their own. So don't settle just to be surrounded. Don't shrink just to be accepted. Let your growth continue to cleanse your circle. It may hurt now, but you're not losing people. You're losing illusions. They will say you forgot where you came from, but they forget you came from survival, not safety. You came from pain, not peace. You came from chaos, not comfort. And when you grow beyond that, it's not betrayal. It's bravery. You didn't turn your back on them, you just stopped turning your back on yourself. And the ones who understand that, they'll never make you feel guilty for choosing yourself. But the ones who needed you broken, they'll twist your growth into a weapon. They'll call you selfish, distant, fake. Let them. That's just the echo of your absence from their dysfunction. You are not responsible for translating your growth into terms they can understand. You are not responsible for shrinking just so they feel tall again. You are responsible for protecting your progress, your peace, your purpose. And that means outgrowing even the ones you love if they refuse to grow with you. Your growth is not an attack. It's a revelation. It reveals who's really for you and who is just there for the benefits of your brokenness. It reveals who can clap for you when you're not on your knees anymore, who still shows up when you don't need saving. And some people, they only knew how to love the version of you that was easy to rescue. But now you don't need rescuing. Now you've built your own ladder. Now you've found your own strength. And instead of celebrating that, they resent it. That's okay, let them. That resentment isn't your burden to carry. Your growth will make some people uncomfortable. Let it. Because you weren't born to keep everyone comfortable. You were born to rise, to break chains, to change legacies, to shift atmospheres. And if your healing makes some people feel defeated, then let them fall back. They were never walking with you, they were holding you back. So when they whisper your name with bitterness in their voice, smile. When they rewrite history to paint themselves as the victim of your growth, stay silent. When they try to stir the old you back to life, keep walking. Because you're not who you used to be. You've grown. And that growth is your victory. Even if it looks like defeat to them. You're not here to be liked by people who benefited from your dysfunction. You're here to rise, to walk in purpose, to embody healing. And every step you take away from their chaos is a reminder that your growth was never about revenge. It was about resurrection. There are moments in your life where it feels like everything is falling apart, where betrayal slaps you across the face and people you once prayed for are now preying on you. But listen closely. This is not punishment. This is revelation. This is God pulling back the curtain and showing you who was never really for you. It hurts, yes. It feels like loss, yes. But it's not destruction. It's divine strength. You cried asking God to protect you from enemies, and He is. But you didn't realize some of those enemies were sitting at your table, laughing with you, walking with you, sharing your secrets. So now as their masks fall off, you want to scream, to fight back, to prove your loyalty. But don't. Stay still. Don't interrupt what God is exposing. Because He's not just removing people. He's removing access, shutting doors you kept opening out of guilt, out of love, out of denial. You wanted truth. And now it's in front of you, raw and undeniable. God is not punishing you. He's protecting your purpose. Let Him do what only He can. Let Him reveal without your interference. Let Him expose without your commentary. Just watch. This is the season where silence is obedience. You don't need to chase closure. You don't need to send that last message, clear up the lie, or defend yourself in the group chat. Because when God exposes a snake, He doesn't need your commentary. He needs your trust. He needs you to step back so He can step in. But that's hard when you love deep. When you trusted people who didn't deserve access to your heart. When you gave grace and mercy only to be met with manipulation. And your flesh wants to fight, your ego wants to clap back. But God didn't call you to fight like them. He called you to rise above it. Let them talk. Let them twist the story. Let them believe they got away with it, because while they're lying, God is building. While they're plotting, God is preparing. You don't need revenge when you serve a God who sees everything. Your silence doesn't mean you're weak. It means you've learned to trust divine timing over emotional reaction. Don't pick up what God is tearing down. Don't explain what God is exposing. Let them go. Let it fall apart. He's revealing everything you were too loyal to walk away from. Sometimes the betrayal is so brutal it breaks something inside of you. And you ask God, why would you let them get that close? But God allowed it so you could see. So you could finally stop justifying red flags. So you could stop calling trauma loyalty. So you could stop carrying dysfunction in the name of faithfulness. God let it sting so you wouldn't settle there. Because if He didn't allow the pain, you would have built your future on lies. And He loves you too much for that. He exposed it so you would stop trying to fix what was sent to break you. You've outgrown the version of yourself that tolerated being used, overlooked, disrespected. So stop trying to shrink back into that person just because the truth hurts. That pain is the proof. The breaking is the blessing. And yes, it feels like you're losing everything, but you're not. The issue is the other side of your courage. The respectability will take hold. You're just losing the people who are hiding behind masks. You're losing the roles you were never meant to play. God is clearing the room. Don't interrupt the cleansing. Don't cling to what's being stripped away. What looks like a storm is really a rescue. He's pulling you out. You keep asking God to elevate you, to bring you into a new season, but you can't take old baggage into new territory. You can't bring enemies disguised as friends into your promised land. You can't walk in purpose while entertaining poison. And God knows that. So he doesn't just bless you. He detoxes you. He exposes what's been leeching off your anointing. He reveals who's been smiling in your face but cursing you in private. And you want to hold on. You want to keep the peace. You want to love them back to life. But God is saying, let me handle it. Because while you're defending them, they're destroying you. While you're making excuses for their behavior, they're planting seeds of doubt and division. So now he's exposing, not to hurt you, but to heal you. And the healing starts with separation. You can't hear clearly when you're surrounded by noise. You can't walk in clarity when you're entangled with chaos. So he's cutting it off, and it may feel like rejection, but it's redirection. Don't interrupt the surgery. Don't fight the pruning. Don't chase the ones he's removing. This is divine disruption. Let it happen. The enemy doesn't always show up with horns and fire. Sometimes it's a familiar voice, a close friend, a mentor, even family. That's why exposure is necessary. Because if God didn't show you, you would have kept feeding what was secretly killing you. Some people were sent into your life as assignments, not alignments. They came with charm, but underneath was control. They came with comfort, but their mission was to keep you small. So now when the truth surfaces, don't be shocked. Be grateful, because God is cleaning house. He's removing the weight you thought was support. He's freeing you from connections that were never covenant. And yes, it feels lonely. Yes, it feels like betrayal. But this loneliness is divine insulation. God is hiding you while he reveals them. Let him. Don't go back for the closure conversation. Don't reattach what he separated. Don't apologize for growing past dysfunction. You've prayed for clarity, and now it's here. Stop calling exposure drama. Stop labeling divine intervention as coincidence. God is revealing the enemy so clearly you can't unsee it. And your job isn't to respond, it's to rest. Rest in knowing that your defender never sleeps. He sees it all. Some of the people you thought would clap for you will go silent when God starts blessing you, not because you did something wrong, but because your elevation exposes their jealousy. And God is showing you that. Because you would have kept sharing dreams with dream killers. You would have kept trusting those who only celebrated you when you were struggling. Now that you've started rising, they pull away. Don't chase them. That distance is divine. God is letting them reveal their hearts before he takes you further. You wanted them to come with you, but God knows their spirit can't handle your calling. So he's letting the fallout happen. Let it. This is the shaking before the settling. This is the sift before the shift. If you try to hold on, you'll miss what's ahead. If you interrupt what he's exposing, you'll re-invite destruction into your next season. Be still. Watch. Don't beg anyone to stay. Don't beg for understanding. Let people mislabel you. Let them walk. Let God be your clarity. What you lose in this exposure season is nothing compared to what you'll gain in obedience. You're not being punished. You're being positioned. You've cried enough tears over people who were never real. You've lost sleep defending people who were planting knives in your back. And now God is saying, that's enough. You've been loyal, you've been patient, you've been forgiving, but now it's time to be still. Because God is not only exposing the enemy, he's elevating you through the exposure. This pain has a purpose. This storm is sanctified. Don't waste it by reacting in the flesh. Don't post subliminals. Don't chase people who already left you emotionally. Don't beg for loyalty from the disloyal. Let God vindicate you. Let him speak for you in silence. The same mouths that cursed you will one day confess your growth. The same eyes that watched you fall will witness your rising. But that only happens if you stop interfering. Stop putting your hands in the fire he's using to purify you. Let him burn off what's been holding you back. Let him remove the Judas before the table is set. You don't need everyone. You just need obedience. Don't block your blessing trying to fix what was never your job to repair. You're not crazy. You're not paranoid. You're discerning. What you felt deep in your spirit was real. God was trying to warn you. And now he's confirming it. That shift you sense, that off feeling in conversations, that fake support, all of it was his way of preparing you for this moment of exposure. So when the truth comes to light, don't second guess it. Don't gaslight yourself into thinking you're too sensitive. No, you're sensitive to him, to his voice, to his protection. And he's been guiding you out of the trap. You just didn't want to believe that the trap had a familiar face. But now you know, now you see, and now you have a choice. Entertain the past or enter into peace. Don't choose comfort over calling. Don't choose history over destiny. Let the exposure do its work. They may look messy now, but God is not the author of confusion. He's the revealer of truth. And if truth brings pain, let it, because the pain will pass, but the freedom you gain from it will stay. Everything God removes is making room for something better. It might feel like devastation, but it's actually divine design. The enemy thought they could distract you, manipulate you, silence you. But what they didn't know was that your silence is not defeat, it's strategy. It's surrender. It's the sound of someone who trusts God more than gossip, more than revenge, more than explanation. You finally come to a place where peace matters more than proving a point. And that, right there, is the beginning of wisdom. Let them throw stones. You're building altars. Let them twist the narrative. You're walking in truth. God will handle what you can't. God will expose what you won't. But you have to be strong enough to stay quiet while he works. Strong enough to feel the betrayal but not be pulled out of character. Strong enough to let go of the ones you loved when they show you they were never loving you back. This is not a loss. This is God making sure you never invest again in people who were sent to divide, not develop. You asked for discernment. Now don't question what he's showing you. Those were people made on your actions. Peace is not passive, it is powerful. It is not the absence of noise, but the presence of God. And when you start protecting your peace, truly guarding it like the sacred ground it is, don't be surprised when people who once controlled you start acting like you've betrayed them. They never loved the real you. They loved the version of you they could manipulate. The version that apologized for things you didn't do. The version that kept quiet just to keep the peace. The version that sacrificed rest just to prove your loyalty. But now you've changed. Now you're choosing silence over shouting, stillness over stress. You're not showing up for every argument. You're not answering every call meant to drain you. And they don't like that. Why? Because your peace exposes their need for chaos. Your calm makes their dysfunction uncomfortable. You've taken your power back. And that power came from deciding that your sanity matters more than their approval. That your clarity is more important than their control. Let them be confused. Let them say you've changed. Let them say you're distant. That distance is the boundary. That silence is the healing. That calm is the weapon. They controlled you with guilt. They made you feel responsible for their moods, their problems, their drama. And for the longest time, you wore it like a badge. You thought love meant fixing. You thought connection meant exhaustion. But that wasn't love. That was control. Because every time you said no, they called you selfish. Every time you created space, they called you cold. But they weren't mad at the distance. They were mad at the freedom it gave you. The moment you started putting yourself first, they lost their grip. The moment you stopped explaining yourself, they started accusing you. Why? Because peace breaks cycles. It ends the games. It silences the manipulation. And now that you're operating from a place of peace, their tactics don't work anymore. You see the pattern now. You feel the shift. You no longer feel obligated to show up for people who disappear when you need them. That's growth. That's clarity. That's spiritual maturity. You are no longer interested in participating in emotional tug of war. You're not going back and forth with people who only show up to stir your spirit. You've learned peace is not passive. Peace is power. And you're done giving that away. They'll try to convince you that peace means isolation, that your boundaries mean bitterness, that your silence means arrogance. But what they're really saying is they can't reach you anymore. They can't pull you back into chaos. They can't bait you into old conversations. And that scares them. Because people who thrive on control panic when their target wakes up. And that's what happened. You woke up. You realized that love doesn't have to be loud. That loyalty doesn't mean losing yourself. You used to over-explain just to be understood. Now you understand yourself, and that's enough. You used to carry guilt every time you chose rest. Now you rest without apology. That's growth. And they feel that. They feel the absence of your old self. The version that tolerated too much. The version that was always available. But you're not that person anymore. You've learned the difference between connection and control, between peace and pleasing, between support and suffocation. And now, you're not afraid to protect your energy. You're not afraid to disappoint people who were never concerned with your well-being. That's not selfish, that's survival. And your survival scares people who were counting on your silence. They'll try to reel you back in with kindness, with memories, with the same sweet words that used to work. Not because they've changed, but because you have. They see the light in your eyes, the confidence in your step, the calm in your voice, and they want to shake that because their power lived in your confusion. in your doubt, in your desperation to be accepted. But now you know who you are. You know what you carry. You know that your peace is your prize, and you're not trading it for temporary comfort. You've stopped arguing with people committed to misunderstanding you. You've stopped chasing validation from people who benefit from your brokenness. And that strength, that self-control, it terrifies them because they can't reach the healed version of you with the same old weapons. You've upgraded. You've armored your spirit with truth. You've fortified your heart with boundaries. And now, what used to trigger you doesn't even move you. What used to ruin your day barely touches your peace. That's what happens when you heal. That's what happens when you stop performing for people who never had your best interest at heart. Peace is your protest. Peace is your power. You used to live in reaction mode. Every call, every comment, every crisis, you were there, running, fixing, explaining. But now, you pause. You pray, you protect. You no longer allow access to people just because they want it. You've learned that peace is intentional, that it doesn't just happen. It's created, it's guarded, it's enforced. And when you finally learn how to say no without guilt, without fear, you'll see who really loved you and who only loved control. Because peace threatens those who can't function without chaos. Your stillness reveals their instability. Your quiet boundaries scream louder than any argument. And now, every time you don't engage, they lose power. Every time you don't respond, they lose control. You are not being difficult, you are being deliberate. You're protecting the one thing God gave you to navigate the storm. Your peace, not your performance, not your perfection, your peace. And if they can't respect that, they don't deserve your presence. You've given too much of yourself to people who only drained you. Now you're giving yourself space to breathe, to think, to heal. That's power. And that power is yours now. It's a strange feeling when you finally stop being addicted to chaos. When you stop feeling anxious because there's no drama. When you finally realize that peace isn't boring, it's beautiful. You're not dodging bullets anymore. You're not walking on eggshells. You're not rehearsing your words to avoid someone else's explosion. And at first, the silence feels unfamiliar. The lack of conflict feels suspicious. But that's only because you were conditioned to believe that chaos was normal, that love had to hurt, that peace was too quiet to trust. But now you trust quiet, you trust space, you trust yourself. And they hate that. Because now, you're no longer emotionally available for their games. You're no longer easily triggered. You're no longer looking to them for your worth. And that makes them powerless. Because their control wasn't about love, it was about dependence. It was about keeping you small. But you're not small anymore. You're not afraid to walk away from what disturbs your spirit. You're not afraid to lose people who were never invested in your growth. Peace has become your protector, your guide, your compass. And as long as you protect that peace, their control will continue to crumble. They never expected you to wake up, to stop answering the phone, to stop explaining yourself, to stop rushing in every time they cried wolf, but you did. You stopped showing up for the same cycle. You stopped handing over your emotional energy like it was free. And the moment you did, their mask fell, because peace reveals who was benefiting from your chaos. It shows you who only stuck around because you kept shrinking, you kept overgiving, you kept bending until you broke. But now you've snapped back, not in anger, but in power. You don't yell, you don't argue, you simply remove yourself. That quiet exit, that boundary, that's what destroys their control. They can't bait you. They can't guilt you. They can't reach you, because peace isn't just the absence of noise. It's the refusal to entertain what drains you. It's the sacred space you protect with everything in you. You've learned how to retreat without running, how to disconnect without bitterness. That is strength. That is power. And it's terrifying to those who counted on your silence, your softness, your compliance. But those days are done. You've traded people-pleasing for peacekeeping, and that's unshakable. Every time you say no without explaining, you heal. Every time you choose rest over proving a point, you grow. Every time you protect your peace, you're saying to the world, I matter, my spirit matters, my energy matters. And people who can't control you will always accuse you. They'll call you cold, they'll say you're selfish, but they're not describing you. You used to bend over backward just to be seen. Now you're invisible to the opinions that don't feed your soul. That shift, that's God. That's healing. You've learned that peace is not something you wait for. It's something you protect with discernment, with boundaries, with unapologetic clarity. And every time you hold that boundary, heaven rejoices. because now you're no longer available for chaos dressed up as love. You've seen the pattern.